Today I'm going to run through a strip down and reskin of one of my snare drums. This is because, shout out to Joey Kozart, he requested that I do this. I'm not a major authority on tuning snares, but I do know what I do that makes snares sound the way I like them. There are hundreds of different videos about this out there. Go check them out. Specifically, go check out DrumDial and their videos. They're very informative. Check out the mash-off technique. I don't subscribe to it, but it's definitely an interesting one to try. Just see who you like. See if you can find a video by them. But I'm going to try and give you my rundown on it. Now, I don't have fresh skins to do this with, and you should always do it with fresh skins really, but we are where we are. Right, I am using, for this video, I am using Tama S.L.P G-Bubinga. I am using an Evans Hybrid batter side and Evans Glass 500 snare side. I'm using the standard snares that came with the snare drum, though I do usually use pure sound wires. I am using TruTuner to do my head changes, skin changes, and I am using a BigFatSnareDrum when we get into the dampening section. Basically, if you haven't heard of TruTuner, they make this awesome product. It's just a plastic disc with a handle on it. You line it up with their little keys that come with it, and you can take and change heads, skins in less than half the time it would normally take. Right, so I'm not cutting any of this video, so you can see just how short a change can be in its entirety. Old hoop off, well, hoop off, old head off. Again, like I say, Evans Hybrids, I've used these for a little while now. These are brilliant heads. They've got a mesh ply to them. They're really hard wearing and they come coated. This one's had a bit of wear on it, so there's this smooth patch here. I like to use brushes as well as sticks, so I should really replace this. Snare side. When I change a snare drum's heads, skins, whatever you want to call them, I always take the snares off completely. Not all drummers do. Do what feels comfortable for you, but I find it makes tuning an awful lot easier if I've got a blank start. And the snare should only really, in my opinion, be an effect. It is an integral part of the snare drum's voice, granted, but it's an effect. You know, the actual tone of the drum comes from the wood, the metal, and the synthetic skins. Now, like to do is to get usually I try and go for the batter side first, but I don't find that that's actually a necessity. I find you can tune either head first as long as you understand that your bottom head should be a bit tighter on a snare drum so you get more response from the snares, from the actual wires. But you know, people swear blind you have to tune batter side first or you have to tune snare side first. Do whatever you feel comfortable with. So, when you strip your snare down, there's the Evans Glass 500. Again, first time really using it, it's definitely worked well for me. I love the sound and response. Right, okay, so when you strip a snare drum down, you should always check, I mean any drum, but you know, always check your bearing edge to make sure that there's no nicks in it. Now you can, and people definitely do, you can strip down all the hardware, clean it up really nice. I find that I don't destroy sticks to the degree that the entire snare drum is coated in wood chippings. So I find at most I normally need to just run a cloth over it, bring out that shine again. Fortunately, I don't think I need to with this one. But what we're going to do is we're going to go with the traditional for a change. We're going to put the batter side on first. Now, trick I find with the TruTuner is if you just locate the lugs into their sockets, I find that gives the TruTuner a bit of a head start and you don't have the potential to start cross-threading. You don't have to do this, and I have managed to do it fine without, but if you just locate all those lugs, it gives it, like I say, it just gives it that little bit of a head start, makes it that little bit easier. Of all drums I chose to do, this is a 10 lug snare drum. So it actually uses every single arm that the TruTuner comes with, because TruTuner comes with a little bag full of these and the disc itself. They have actually released an updated version of the TruTuner since the version I've purchased, which is annoying because I haven't got the money aside at the moment to get the updated version. The updated version involves a few different lug patterns, which would be really helpful for me because a couple of my other drums actually have those odd patterns that aren't on the original. Right, TruTuner on, head in place. You don't even need to use the handle. I mean, you just turn it until you're happy the lugs are in. Okay, that's where I lose tension, well, too much tension by doing it this way. I like to go a bit further because I like my snares cranked. Yeah. And then you double check, preferably with a mallet, but you double check. So this one's a little bit low by my ear. And that one. Right. So that gives us not a bad start. That then is ready to go, and that can be tightened or loosened later to actually change the actual tone of the drum. But that is a very good starting point. Now, people will tell you, and they're not going to be entirely wrong with this, but people will tell you that when you do an opposing head, to mute the original head. Now this is very good if you want to isolate the tone of just the one head, but if you want to get the tone of the overall drum, you want them both to sing. Remember when you're putting a snare side rim on, to always line up your snare beds so you don't have to take the thing off again just to get the snares in. Again, just locate those lugs. So they're not cross-threading and you don't lose them when you're getting your TruTuner going. Like I say, if you do mute the other side, it will give you a good representation of what this head sounds like. Now, unless you're being very particular about the differences in tone between each head, or if you're the kind of person, which is a rarity I find, that actually flips a drum over and drums on both sides, you're not really worried about that unless it, except for what change of pitch of the overall drum you get from it. What you want to do is get your drums sounding right. It's all about the sound. It's not about theory, it's not about pitch, unless you're very specific about what pitch you need. It's all about making it sound how you want it to sound, which could involve lots of experimentation. It could involve a very long tuning process. My snare side head. Now I'm muting the bottom head just for this purpose. It's like a gunshot. That's fine by me. But again, you double check. sitting your snares in. There's all different types, and there's all different types of ribbons and strings that attach them. I know I usually use Pure Sound wires. The ones I always get seem to come with strings. I think I prefer ribbons over strings, but at the end of the day, as long as the snares sit and work and the string or ribbon doesn't break, I'm happy. And I have had a strong one break on me before. What I like to do with my strings, my snares rather, is to seat them so that these solid bits that hold the snares themselves are roughly equal distance from the bearing edge that you can see. And you don't want to do it too tight at first, because fortunately on this snare drum there is a function on both sides to tighten the tension. What you want is a nice loose wire to begin with, enough so that you can do the traditional way of checking the tone, which is to slide a stick underneath and then you can tap. If you can do this, I think you've got your snare wires sitting right. So then I'll tighten them up. And we should be good to go. Now, no ring from the snares, no extra buzz. It's a nice short buzz, which is the way I like it. Tone of the drum's good for me. I'm done. Now when it comes to changing the pitch of my snare drum, once I've got it tuned like this, I prefer to dampen rather than detune and retune, because that involves constantly stretching and slacking the head, the skin, which does actually damage this with play as well. So what I prefer to do is slap a BigFatSnareDrum on it to give me a different tone. If I don't have BigFatSnareDrum available, at the moment I use Moongel, which is made by RTOM, the makers of the black hole practice system, which is actually a cool thing that I wouldn't mind trying. But that's for a more old school approach. This is for an entirely different approach, and I do prefer this for the most part. I currently use 4 snares, so a big thing with me as well is choosing the role of each snare and where they're going to go. So this at the moment, and for the past few months, has been my primary snare. So I don't want it too low, because I like a nice snap to my snare drum. When I tune one for a secondary or tertiary, I always pick a different tone. Whether the drums are the same sizes or not, you can generally match them if you want. But what I try to go for is 4 distinct different tones with my 4 snares. I do tend to use one of them as a secondary floor tom at the moment, and one of them is a little 10-inch popcorn type snare, and that has a huge punch to it. But dampening, I recommend BigFatSnareDrum. I recommend Moongel if you can't get that. If you can't get either of those, I recommend your mobile, your cell phone, or a wallet, something. I haven't tried snare weights, I hear good things. But I do not recommend under any circumstances gaffer tape or duct tape. The way I see it, it ruins the texture or the gloss of a skin. Because if you rip it off, then there's this tacky area, and if you get a stick in it, or God forbid you get a brush in it, it's gonna balls it right up. If you must put tape on a snare drum, I mean, it's all down to you. You know, do what you want. But my recommendation, if you're going to put tape on a drum, use electrical tape. It doesn't leave anywhere near as much residue. It's no way near as nasty. And fine, it's thinner, but you can do 2-3 strips in the same space. You can do one thick strip of gaffer, or you can space those 2-3 strips out and get a more even dampening. But personally, I do not and will not ever recommend anyone having gaffer tape for their drums. You know, use coloured gaffer tape to mark up your positions and everything, but please don't ever use it on your drums.